Hi, my name's Nathan. This is Jonathan. I created this channel initially because I wanted to start a journal of my progress of regaining health and building up skills and different things. But I find it more immersive to do those things on my own without anybody else watching. And so, over the last 2 years, I've been building myself up from the lowest I've ever been in my life. I weighed 320 pounds, and I was eating probably 10 to 20,000 calories of food per day and drinking up to 2 liters of soda per day. It was tough, but I pushed through it every day, and I kept trying to continue the path that I was on. I went to school for chemistry, got my degree in chemistry, went to graduate school, taught a little bit of chemistry there, tutored a lot, had a blast doing all of that stuff. But anything other than teaching just killed me on the inside. I even found it hard to play video games and watch movies and TV because I was just so depressed. And so, 3 years ago, I decided to stop graduate school prematurely, go home, and get my shit together. And the first year, I was just kind of acclimating back to the environment that I had lived in and grown up in most of my life. And I struggled. I did not know what the heck I was doing. I was afraid every day. The news had me afraid. And when COVID happened, I was just terrified because my doctors were telling me, if you get COVID, you're going to die. Like, chances you're going to die are really high. You have no functioning immune system. Your immune system is compromised. You got to get vaccinated. You got to do all these things. And after I got vaccinated, I started having some heart problems. So I decided then and there that it was time to start taking my life a little bit more seriously. And seeing if there was anything I could do. I asked the question, what can I do to make my life better? Because no one else was. My doctors, I remember the first time when I was diagnosed with kidney failure, one of the first doctors told me that the average kidney patient, or the average kidney failure patient, dies within 5 years of starting dialysis. And I don't know if that was true or not. I never bothered to look it up myself. Back then, I was completely trusting in the whole scientific community. And anyone who was a degreed expert, that to me meant that they were telling me the truth. And so I believed it. And I spent the first 3 years of my kidney failure, so from 2017 to 2020, just miserable and losing more health and losing more mobility and finding it harder and harder to do even the most basic things. And eventually I had to ask that question. Is there anything that I can do? Because no one is helping me. Like, people were helping me, but they were only helping me in the way that was comfortable for them, not in the way that I needed, not in the way that would help me get better. So I used that as a realization that I could start an experiment where I just tried different things. And if something worked, maybe I'd stick with it for a while and see what the long-term benefits would be. And if it didn't work, I would just completely ignore it. And if I ever came to a point where I wanted to try it again, I could try it again. It's all about repeatability. That's what I learned in science. Science is demonstrable repeatability. And so everything I was doing was based on just one opinion or opinions that came from one source of information, and not trying to figure out the whole grand scheme of things. Like, why did my kidneys fail in the first place? They told me it was genetics. But if you take a modern biology class, there's a concept called epigenetics, which it's based on my understanding and based on my experience of it, is direct thought, direct belief, and environment all contribute to genetic expression. And that makes sense because if I were to live in a town that is predominantly known for coal mining or burning coal, there's a good chance that I might have some medical issues that are related to coal. And if I didn't live in a place like that, which I don't, then I shouldn't have issues like that. So I've used my own understanding of that concept to just sort of change the way I approached my belief in things and to modify my lifestyle. Now, by doing that, some things have turned out well, some things have not. And I've learned from a lot of things, and I still have more learning to go. But in that process, I've come up with a plan to sort of automate my healing process, or the process that I believe is what has led to my healing. Every time I stick with something that doesn't work, the healing stops. Every time I start doing things that do work, the healing goes back on, and I can feel not only just better, like physically better, but my emotional state is improved. My focus is much better. I'm able to do more things. I'm able to have gain better outcomes out of things that I've done before. I'm less stressed out about things that would keep me on my butt for days at a time. Throwing up in the morning used to be a big thing. It's not a big thing anymore, but even when I do it still every once in a while, I usually am able to just stay up and continue. Before, it used to be, oh, threw up, I'm done for the day. So, but I want to start this project, but I wanted to start from the very beginning of the list that I have started. So I'm going to go ahead and switch sides here. I don't know if I can. Well, I'll just bring up the page next to me. So I have a stack of pages that I've been working on for a couple of days now. I've been writing quite a bit. You can see front and back. So the first page is my daily goals. And what that's going to be is I want to not automate. So I'm not taking myself out of the equation, because that's what automation seems to do with everything today, or at least in the modern corporate framework. But what I want to do is I've learned how to split my mind and distract my mind when I'm reading while I'm doing other things. So I can do two things with my mind at the same time. And that makes sense, because if you read about how the brain works, you have left hemisphere, right hemisphere. One's more responsible for logical reasoning and structured activities, while the other one is more creative and is imaginative. And when I was younger, especially like in high school, I was a lot more creative than I was logical. But I did certain things that used the creativity to create the logical outcome. So using creative ways of exercise in order to build up my stamina, in order to do more exercise so I could be in really good shape. I lost 50 pounds as a shot putter my senior year of high school, going from 230 pounds to 170. I think it's like 175. It's about where I am now. As a shot putter, which is crazy because I'm throwing a metal ball. I've never seen really small guys throw the metal ball, decently far, but I was pretty competitive with a lot of the people in our league and in some of the other schools from our invitationals and stuff. So obviously what I was doing was all right, but so I had that creative aspect back then, but when I graduated high school and got into the real world or the social world, where you work a job and you just kind of do meaningless activities for 8+ hours a day, I eventually lost my ability to be creative. I still had creative discussions with people. Like, I could still talk creatively, but none of my lifestyle was creative. And I think that's why I spent so much time playing video games, is I needed that outlet. But the problem with video games is I don't really create in a video game. I only have access to what I'm allowed to create. And so I ended up losing interest. There was a time where I would start a game and I would just keep restarting the game over and over and over again. A game called Civilization. And I just kept restarting because it's just like, what am I doing? And I couldn't figure it out. And, I skipped a lot of college. I missed a lot of classes and stuff, but I was desperate. And over the last couple of years, I've discovered how to use my creativity again in order to make logical decisions towards my future and towards the future of others, because what I do is not just for me. I believe that the reason why education in the world and everything is just so terrible today is because it's all taught as if everybody is learning the same way. It has to be taught the same way because otherwise it wouldn't be fair. But the problem is it's already not fair because everyone learns differently. I learn differently. I'm a much better hands-on learner. I like to watch someone do it and then I just repeat it. And then I figure out my own way to make it better. And so that's always been a problem for me because everywhere I've worked, no one's ever encouraged, personal growth and stuff. It's always been, you watch your coworkers and it's just everyone's doing the bare minimum. So why should I work hard? And I hate working in that kind of environment. So I started figuring out ways to enjoy the work that I do. And so working at Amazon for a couple months at a time, working at UPS for a couple months at a time, working at Fred Meyer for a couple of months at a time, like I found ways to actually make it fun. But the problem is they keep changing the rules and they keep making the job harder. They don't pay enough to, compensate for the changes that are arbitrary. Like the changes aren't even good. They're just changing things to change things. So I've decided that I need to do something radically different. And I'm not going to talk about all of the steps in this yet because I need to figure out if it's going to work first. Every time I talk about things first and then try it, it always ends up failing because when I talk about things, especially really detailed things that I haven't put any time into yet, I end up finding reasons why I don't like it, and it doesn't work. So I know that's complicated. It's not what anybody wants to hear, but when you're dying and no one's helping you survive or no one's helping you recover your health, you don't have a choice. Like you do have a choice. The choice is you either accept the pain and you just live through it until the day you die. And that's what I was doing before. Or in my experience of the last 2 years, you make changes, and some of the changes are hard, especially at first. But when the changes yield outcomes that work really well, you ask yourself, why did I wait to make this change? And I believe there's a reason for everything. Going through school, going through science, energy lost equals energy gained. So the conservation of energy, conservation of momentum. And then what I'm trying to build now is momentum. The idea that if I can put most of my time into good thoughts, that should lead to, and with a little bit of willpower, that should lead to me making the choices I need to make fit in the physical world in order to get the outcomes that I need. So yeah, I have daily goals. It includes reading, typing, writing. Basically, the way I do it was with reading. I read out loud. I like to read verbally, and I've built up my voice for this over the last couple of years. Before, I would lose my voice after maybe an hour of reading, and I would lose my focus after maybe a couple of hours of reading throughout the day. But through years of practice and just doing it every day, I'm able to read for 8 to 12 hours a day now. And I can read out loud the whole time. So I want to take advantage of that and just go ahead and just go through a bunch of reading. The reason I like reading is because with voice, it carries throughout the air and it's hitting all the parts of the body. So if I were to have a detector, like a scientific detector, a piece of machinery that detects sound waves, and I were to put it near any parts of my body, it would detect when I'm talking, it would detect the sound that's coming from that. And so because the skin and the hair are basically detectors, they vibrate as other things vibrate. They complement the vibrations in the air, and then they have their own vibrations from the inside of the body. That's like almost a full body experience. So that's why I like to read out loud. It's reading and it's listening at the same time. And what I like to do is I like to find I like to use music or other things to distract my listening sense, and so all of it's just kind of going to my peripheral hearing. And so that's basically what I want to do for most of my time right now. But before I read anything, before I do anything like that, I'd like to do the typing or the writing, which is what I kind of started here, and I'll go ahead and go through some pages. So I'm going to use a mixture of Roman numerals and just the regular American use of the Arabic numerals, so like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then like I, IV, X, and stuff, in different ways to organize things in a way that I like, that I find useful. And then the English alphabet for now, because that's all I really know. I might use some Greek symbols as well, because that's something we learn in chemistry. But I'd like to create a log that tracks all of the times I record things, and then the device that I record on. I have 2 different devices that I record primarily, or 3. I have a voice recorder, which is this guy. So basically, it's got a speaker on the top, and I just talk into it like this. I've always liked watching TV shows where the scientist in the TV show or the movie is like, this is the date, this is the time. I observed this, like things like that. So I'd like to start doing that to keep track of when I'm doing things. And then I'll obviously read into it as well. So my readings will go into this. But I also have the cell phone that I'm recording with now. It's a OnePlus 9 Pro. It's got a pretty good camera. So I plan on recording anytime I do any typing or writing or drawing or anything like that. I actually plan on having this face my hands, because I have ideas for the future when I get into machine learning, and I'd like to have the recordings available for then. So I'll have that. And then I have a Chromebook, which I just do typing on. It's good for word processing. It doesn't take a lot of computer power or anything. And then I have this guy down here. It's an Acer Predator. It's a gaming laptop I bought while I was in college. That's going to be used for stuff that's going to be more graphic intensive. So if I ever get into graphic design or animation or anything like that, or when I get into those things, because I need to stop saying if, because I've been thinking about these things for years. So obviously it has to happen. So that's what I want to do with that. And then it's also got a webcam that I record my face when I upload things to a website called Loom. Loom is similar to, it's kind of like YouTube, but uses a webcam. And I think if you get the free version of it, you can still view other people's stuff if you get invited, but I'm not sure. I haven't played around too much with it. I just really like it as a middleman for when I proofread, because when I write essays, I love writing, but when I write essays and I type up things, I don't like to do a rough draft and then go back to it later and then review it and then go back, have other people read it. What I like to do is I like to write a certain way, and I like to proofread as I go, and start out with a more final version of my rough draft that way. So it takes a little bit longer that way, but I find it gives me the best results. So that's why I keep doing it that way. Let's see. But yeah, so my plan is all videos that I record will be uploaded to Loom and onto this. So one will be straight audio, one will be video and audio, and then I'll have my cell phone, this guy, recording my hands if I'm doing anything with my hands, or any other part of my body, for the AI use that I decide to make eventually. So, my big thing is I was going to work at Amazon part-time in order to make this work, But I'm finding that after my issues with their HR over the last few weeks, it took them almost a month to get my doctor's note approved so that way I could go back to work. So I quit. And I have Instacart still, and I've spent a few days kind of figuring out how to make Instacart supplement my income so that way I can make all of that work. And with Instacart, what I can do is I can do my readings on this guy while waiting for good orders, so that way I can feel like I'm getting the most done. So I'm going to start doing that tomorrow. But I need to have all my time for this. I keep trying to use my time for specific things so that way I can spend the rest of my time doing this, but I just don't see the benefit anymore. It's not helping me, and it's causing, it's drama that I don't need when I am perfectly capable of doing all of this stuff on my own time. I just need to do it on my own time. So let's go ahead and go through the major readings that I plan on doing. The major readings are, I'm using openstacks.org. OpenStacks is a website with free textbooks that are all pretty much introductory level, and in some subjects they go a little bit further. So with chemistry, they also have organic chemistry. With math, they only go up to calculus for math. That's not very far. With a lot of business stuff, so economics is sort of an introductory thing. But then you have like introduction to business. You have finance. You have you have just a whole bunch of different things. College success, workplace skills and software, different things like that. So I wanted to use that to go through some of the more basic books, which I have written down right here. So those books are contemporary math. So that's going to contain things like set theory, a little bit of algebra, some statistics, and then some real world examples. It's got pre-calculus and calculus, so all of the things that you would need to know for calculus. Biology, so that's going to be body systems in a nutshell. It's going to be heredity and sex and different things like that. Classification of different body parts and then their functions. Chemistry is going to be chemistry is actually a model. It's not actually perfected, although it seems like it is. But basically, we've chosen as a chemist to look at things from the atomic perspective, where atoms are a particle, but they're also a waveform, and they're the base building block. We call it the base building block, but there's actually smaller building blocks that are needed to build those. But they don't talk about those too much. But basically, from that perspective, from the atomic perspective, you can build molecules and you can do other things. And it's a very good model, but it's not an exact model. It's not perfect. And so I want to explain that in detail when I get through it, because I thought it was perfect. I thought it was the truth, that you have all the rules and then you have exceptions. But if you have a perfect model, you don't have exceptions. There's no exceptions to the rules because all the rules fit the model. All the rules fit the reality, and that's not what happens. So I want to get into chemistry and then go through the whole... I'm going to resequence the chemistry and go through organic chemistry, analytical chemistry, inorganic chemistry, biochemistry, and physical chemistry, and figure out what all I never figured out, because as a chemist, it bothers me that I'm able to get a degree and not even comprehend all of it. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So, and then the next one is physics. Physics and chemistry are tied together. They're the same thing. Chemistry is just a more precise limitation of physics. Geology, that's not in the OpenStack, so I had to find that somewhere else. So I went to another website for that. But learn more about the functions of the worlds, the physical processes of mountains and land masses and water masses, and the interactions between the water and the solid objects with the air and all that stuff, getting into erosion, especially crystals. I love crystals. Crystals are super cool. I read a book recently on this channel called The Crystal Bible, and it just sort of talked about the sort of more traditional ways of looking at crystals, but there's crystal theories in science that deal with the structures and the functions and like the vibrations of crystals, and I'd like to get into the more of that eventually. So I want to start with geology. Economics, basically for me, that's with doing things that I should be doing. I look at economics as a way of trading, my mind, my time, my body for consequences that I'd like to have happen in my life. And so by learning more about economics, I might learn some terminology that'll help me better understand making those decisions. Astronomy, so studying everything that's not on the Earth, that kind of pairs as a complement to geology. Anatomy and physiology, so more specific biology related to the human body. And then philosophy, just how to think about things, how to connect things, how to put them all together. Contemporary philosophy is much more differentiated or deconstructed than I'd like it to be, but it's good to have it that way because it's easier to experience the different ideas and to try to make sense of them. Because everyone who comes up with the ideas, they could be a con artist or they could actually believe. And I prefer to believe that when people talk, when people act, they believe in those actions. That's why they do them. That's why they say them. So reading about the different philosophies will help me understand better sort of the different aspects of different ways of thinking about things. U.S. history and world history, because I'm clueless about any of it. All I know is what I've seen on TV, which, that's self-explanatory. Anthropology, study of people. However, the problem is when I first took anthropology, I've taken 2 anthropology classes. I looked at it from the science perspective, and science, that perspective is pretty dehumanizing. It treats the person as an object and not as a person that is capable of change and is capable of growth and is capable of great things and great potential. So I'd like to reread and re-go through all of that and see if I have different opinions. Sociology, psychology, I think those go pretty well together. Sociology is study of people in society, or study of society, really, but you can't really have society without people. So, and then psychology, you can't have people without psychology because everyone has a brain, everyone acts out it's in their mind. So, political science, American government, I just want to know how these systems work. I don't particularly care how they run things just because it's never the best people in the best positions doing the best things. So, but it's a good way of getting perspective of maybe how things changed and maybe figuring out why things continue down the path that they're going. And then entrepreneurship, being able to present myself and my ideas, and maybe gain. I don't really care for the money. The money's not the big thing. It's not why I want to do this, because everything I've ever done that's involved money I've always lost my interest in. So this project I've been building under the pretense that I'm going to make myself a better person. And I do that by covering in the gaps in memory that are left behind by the people who studied these things and have since died. So, right now I'm working on just sort of a big table of contents for all of the different books. I've written out all of the numbers, so all the chapter number and section numbers for all of the textbooks that I plan on going over. All the other books I'm going to read, I'm going to, or I will fill in on paper as I go. I wanted to do this 2 different ways. So OpenStax will be one way, and then the rest of my readings will be the other way. So the OpenStax will sort of set it out because I want to. The ideas are like in the table of contents and stuff, and in the key terms and all of that. They're all set out so that they can be built upon by doing the readings. So I like to read all of the outline information first, all the table of contents, all of the key terms, all of the summary content, all of the end of chapter problems, any of that stuff. I want to figure out what this book is going to solve if I read it, or what this book aims to solve if I read it. And then I read through all of the stuff that it aims to solve, and then I read it, and then I solve it. So that makes sense to me. But for books like the Great Books of the Western World and other nonfiction and fiction books, the way they're ordered is just, chapters and then sections and so on, paragraph and all of that, that I'll just read through it and maybe write down each time I do a paragraph, the next number for the paragraph, and then next chapter, that's a number. And then once I've read through the whole book and I have the outline, I can go through it again along with my audio, and I can proofread and make corrections and summarize and do other things like that. So that's the main part of those. So I have... So basically, all of this is... So this is where the numbers start. So I've just been kind of working on it as I work on it. Okay. And then let's go back here. So that's OpenStax, or that's textbooks. So OpenStax textbooks, and then that geology book. My goal is to read 2 chapters per day. So I want to make this last about 6 months. And if I do 2 chapters per day, let's see, where's that other page? I have another page somewhere. It's on the back. Yeah, there it is. So on this page, I did a little bit of number crunching. I wrote an exponential form for each book. So I'd say 1 raised to the power of 5 or 2 raised to the power of 7. And what that means is the numbers that increase in chronological order, 1, 2, 3, 4, so the base of the number, that is the chapter. And then the exponent is the number of sections within that chapter that I'll have to read. So this way I could calculate using just my TI-36X Pro calculator. It's one of my favorites. You could do some calculus on that. So what I could do then is because the number of chapters just increases chronologically, whatever the last chapter is, that's the number of chapters I'm going to read. Except for a couple of them. A couple of the books are sequential books, so like Calculus 1, 2, and 3, and they start off at either the previous or the end chapter or the 2 end chapters from the previous book, so I omitted those because I don't want to redo them. So some of the books, like with Calculus, like Calculus 2, I started at chapter 3 because chapters 1 and 2 are the same as chapters 5 and 6 from the previous book. So I didn't want to redo that. That just seemed like a waste of time. So when that happened, then I just the start chapter to the end chapter, that tells me how many chapters there are. Take the difference. And then overall, I've calculated for all of the books, there are a total of 436 chapters that I'm going to read with 2,273 sections at 21,062 pages. So if I divide that's 6 months or 180 days. That's looking at about 120 pages per day, which, based on my own prediction, will be about 3 to 4 hours a day just reading those sections. But that also relates to 13 sections per day or 90 per week. So that gives me an idea of how much I need to do each day. And if I'm not putting all of my time into, working at Amazon and trying to just not be dead inside doing things that make no sense to me, then I should be able to do that no problem. And I've had days where I've read 8, 10, 12, or even more. I've had days, there were days in high school where I would read 18 to 20 hours a day. I literally just could not put the book down. The book was so good that I would take it to school, and during class I would just read the book because fuck it. And I mean, all that information they're going to teach you in school anyways, it's all on the internet. So, like, I wish I would have done that instead. I could have read so many books. I always, one of my biggest regrets when I was a kid was never reading enough. Like, there were times when I find a book and I would do it, and then I would do the book reports and I would do all that stuff. I always wanted to write book reports. I loved writing book reports. They were so fun, but I could never do it unless there was a grade for it. And that now is the problem with school. It's like, there was no incentive for me to be better. And in fact, like, a lot of the kids, well, I never had this experience, but I know some kids did. But like some of the really smart kids who were really nerdy, like, I used to feel the same way about, and I feel bad about that now because, like, it's stupid. The whole point of school isn't to go to have fun. It's to learn, to remember everything, but so it doesn't get lost. Because everyone who wrote the books and who came up with the theories and the experiments that led to all these books and readings and writings and all of that stuff, they're all dead. And, like, there's no incentive to remember what they knew because we can just automate it. Especially now with AI. AI can just tell you the answer to everything. It's like, so I find that boring and not conducive to my improvement of health. So that's why I'm doing this. So that's where I'm at now with that. And then I want to read library and thrift books, so I'm going to read those in the same style, and I think I'm just going to switch it up based on either per day. Maybe I'll do library one day, then thrift one day, or maybe I'll do one thrift book and then I'll do one library book, or maybe I'll just do a whole bunch of different things at different times just because I can, because why the fuck not? So I have about 25 or 30 thrift books, and I think like 10 or 15 library books that are overdue, that have been overdue forever because I've been coming up with this project and I should have come up with it first before checking out the books. But I checked out the books because at the time they seemed like they were important and I needed them for future things in my life, even if it was just to have them on me. So some of the books are on like machine learning. Some of the books are on, like, one of them's a dictionary, so I want to go through that. It's actually a really cool dictionary. It's a 1970s dictionary with pictures, so colored pictures of the presidents up through Nixon. And then it has a student guide for all of the contemporary topics that were taught at the time in the schools back then. And then it's the dictionary with all the definitions and stuff. So I think that's a really interesting book. So I'd like to go through that one. And that one, because it's old, I think I'll just record myself doing it. I'll have my phone pointed down, sort of like this. And then I'll just kind of go through it. Maybe I'll highlight the whole thing or something. I'll do like a green highlight or a yellow highlight and just go through everything that I plan on reading, or as I read it, and that'll be my bookmark. But yeah, so those are those books. And then I have some books that I'm calling great books. So great books, I consider anything before probably the 1950s, 1960s, so before like civil rights, before all of that stuff, because a lot of the issues that people were protesting then are more socially caused and not naturally caused. And so most of the things that came before that were coming from nature. So like one example, I learned how to manipulate some of my neurochemistry when I'm in pain. I can't just like turn pain off. What I can do is I can move the thing that's in pain, and what that does is it causes the endorphins that help relieve pain, to help fight pain, build up in my body, and so the pain becomes more bearable by doing that. And that's I've always kept touching the thing. Doctors always say don't touch the thing that's in pain, but every time I do that, I heal way faster. So because I was it earlier last year, I injured both my ankles, and I was I physically could not walk without assistance. And I had a chair in my car, a folding chair. And so I used the folding chair and I braced all of my weight on it. And I was able to slowly use it like a cane to move from point A to point B. But for several days, I had a pretty hard time with that. And for a few weeks, it took a little bit. But then I used what I learned from that experience when I injured both of my elbows a few months later. And my elbows were perfectly fine within a week. And the pain was unbearable. Like I couldn't even lift myself out of bed with my arms. I had to roll off of my bed, land on my knees, and then use my legs to get myself up. It was crazy. So, but pretty much everything that's derived from science can be just explained by nature. And so a lot of these great books, they talk about their societies, but they try to come at it from a bigger perspective. And so it's going to be philosophers and artists and literary geniuses and mathematicians and all sorts of people from 6,000 years ago to today. So but I'm starting with Great Books of the Western World. It's a publication by Encyclopedia Britannica back I think in the 1950s. It's a compilation of a whole bunch of different materials from ancient Greece up till the early 1900s. And then the Sacred Books of the East, I believe that's the Eastern complement to the Great Books of the Western World. So I want to read both of those because I think I'll get the most out of reading both of those. The people back then felt it was important enough to put those compilations together. So I want to do that. And in conjunction with those, that includes the Bible and the Quran and the Vedas, which I think the Vedas actually might be in Sacred Books of the East. So I'm not sure if I'll need to read that one separately. But the Bible and the Quran are not in both of those. So I'm going to read both of those. I haven't decided which version of the Bible I'm going to read. And the Quran, I'm just going to choose whatever one comes up first. And maybe eventually I'll learn how to read it properly. But for now, I'm just going to read everything in English. They might be translated wrong. They might not get the right message off, but I'm pretty good at reading between the lines and finding out what things have been lost in translation. So that'll be my goal for those. But I've read a decent amount of the Bible now, and I find that there's a lot of learning lessons that I needed to learn about, that I needed to come to terms with, that I was not willing to accept. But seeing that other people, whether they're fictional or not, it doesn't matter to me. If the fictional character can learn something from their actions, I can at least imagine and try mimicking that and seeing if it works for me too. Like that's why I like fiction a lot, because fiction, yeah, it might not be happening really right now, but it did happen in someone's mind, and it's possible that there's just another way of figuring out how to do it. So and then my first book of fiction that I want to read outside of all of this is The Lord of the Rings. I fucking love The Lord of the Rings. I watch every year at least once. I go through the uncut versions of the movies, and I absolutely love them. They hit so close to home. I watched the whole series, the whole trilogy on Discord with a friend of mine while he was at his house and I was at mine, and I got him to experience Lord of the Rings for the first time, and he really liked it. So that was really fun. I want to start making that a thing, but I need to read the books because I think the books, it's really important to look at things from multiple perspectives. Like if I only know Lord of the Rings from the movies and maybe one game, I don't know very much about Lord of the Rings because it all started with J.R.R. Tolkien and his book. So that's another thing I want to do. And then another one on the side is the Red Book by Carl Jung, which is I never thought would be a big book for me. So I've always read that it would be too complicated to read. But man, it is a beautiful book so far from what I've read. Like, what was going on through Jung's mind while he was producing this book and the books that he used to create the book. Like, it's such an interesting way of thinking. And so I want to go through that as well. And then my other project is to spend at least 3 times per day at the gym. And so I'm going to start doing that tomorrow as well. I was doing 2 times and 1 time, but I think 3 times. If I'm not going to be doing Amazon and I can do a full 4-hour, 5-hour Amazon shift without having too much foot pain, without having too much body aches or anything afterwards, I should be able to handle a good long or several sessions a day. So I'm going to start doing that. And then sauna visit is part of that. And then any other projects I work on is going to be towards my health. So cooking, extractions. So as a chemist, I know how to extract certain materials out of, if I want to extract water-soluble things out of fruit, I know how to do that. I could do alcohols to extract water-soluble and oil-soluble things. I can use oils to extract oil-soluble things. And I want to start getting into blending, dough making, bread making, and just different things like that. I love bagels, and I hate buying bagels because most of the bagels that are out there are just terrible. But having a place down the street called Seize the Bagel, little restaurant, they sell their bagels, and if you go at the right time, it's 3 6-packs of bagels, so 18 bagels for like $7.50. Which for freshly made bagels in the beginning of the day, that's a pretty good deal. So I'm going to start doing that. But yeah, I got a lot of different things that I want to do. But really, the main thing that has been on my mind for the last couple of years is getting back into tutoring and teaching. And so the textbook and the reading projects are my main ones. And then the gym projects I will use to stake on my reading project. So every time I do a reading project, I earn a gym. If I do a gym thing, then I earn a reading, and then so on and so forth. Maybe I can accumulate points, create my own like currency that way, because that's basically all money is, just an accumulation of an idea. But that's basically what I want to do, and I want to start seeing if anyone is interested in investing in this project, because the ultimate goal for this project is to turn my kidney failure all the way around. Doctors say it can't happen. But the problem is they're only looking at scientific papers that have a limited number of patients, most of which are older than me, and not trying to cure their kidney failure. I am trying to cure my kidney failure. I believe I can cure my kidney failure. I've turned around my health so much in the last 2 years, 320 pounds to 175 pounds in 2 years, eating mostly fast food and drinking soda still. So obviously what they told me was I needed for my diet was not true, or was not correct for what I need based on my needs. I need a high carb diet based on the amount of exercise that I put in when I'm doing the exercises, and I need to fast when I'm not really doing anything physical. And I've spent the last few months really working on that. So yeah. Eventually, I'll pop up some social media sites or profiles. I'm going to do pretty much all of the major ones. So Twitter, or X is what it's called now, Facebook, Instagram. I think WhatsApp is a phone app that I can use. And then I'll do some of the donating ones as well, Cash App, Venmo, different things like that as well, if anyone's interested in contributing. But this project I have been building up so that way I can do without any financial assistance from anybody else besides whatever I work, so whatever businesses I choose to get money through. So right now it's Instacart, but in the near future I might tutor. It just depends on how I want to do this, but I'd rather avoid corporate structures, because the corporate structures take a lot of the money that you pay, and just make it to a donation only sort of thing. So that way I can help out anyone who needs help, whether they pay or not. Because I hate the idea that you need help. Oh, you can only do it if money's involved. And that just bothers me because most of the things that we require money for don't make sense, especially with how money's used today. So that's my plan in a nutshell. I'll start uploading more videos here tomorrow. So tomorrow's goals then are, or I guess I'll just do near future goals, and I'll start doing a daily goal series where I just kind of talk about daily and weekly goals. I want to get this done this week, but today I'm going to just do this and this. Or here's my bare minimums for today, and if I get more done, then I can calculate that as a percentage or something. But so I really want to get social media started. And before I couldn't figure it out because I kept money kept being the main thing. I wanted to make money. But the problem is I don't care about money that much. Like every time I try to make money, I lose interest. So what this is going to do is this any money I get is going to help towards this project and any future projects and any experiments and any of that stuff. So it's going to help with housing. It's going to help with utilities. It's going to help with anything that I need to make this happen. But I'm going to make this happen no matter what. Even if I lose, even if I became homeless or anything, like I have ways of making this work as long as I have a way of charging my stuff. And even just having paper and pen, using the library, if I had to, I can make this work. So no matter what, I'm going to make this work. But I have all these useful gadgets right now. Why not make the best use of it? So, so goals right now, create that first social media presence, and then begin uploading goals and begin uploading readings. And I'll do, maybe a couple hours a day of writing on my own time. Just kind of completing the table of contents and the outlines for all the books that I want to read. So if you're interested in donating to the cause, go check out. I'm going to use Give, Send, Go and GoFundMe. So Give, Send, Go. I'll just provide a link in the comments or in the description. I've never done that. So we'll make that work. But I'll make sure to upload that sometime when I get a chance here in the next few minutes. I'll put a little description on it then. So, all right, 50 minutes of talking nonstop. I think that's everything I wanted to get off my chest. Thank you for listening, and feel free to give me any commentary anytime you choose.